Talking financial organization and a professional practice does not have to be boring. Are you ready for a few money in, money out ideas? It's Susan Gunn coming directly to your head to make you think. Can you handle the truth? Because she is known for being energetic, laughs a lot, and gives honest, sometimes direct, but always practical advice. It's time now for Money In, Money Out.
Way too often through the years, I discover in my embezzlement cases a lack of collecting the patient payment portion at the time of service. Why? And almost always in those cases, the over 90 days of uncollected accounts receivable is so high. It was a problem before this year. And like a lot of other things, I believe it will be worse for 2020 with so many losing their jobs and their benefits. That's why I wanted to have two experts in the dental industry talk about their philosophy and systems in how to best address patient payment collections. That's almost hard to say 20 times together, right? Let me introduce to you Linda Valencia and Jody Catalanello. So can't say that one either 20 times. Catalanello. I got to say it with, wait, let me say it with the Italian accent. Catalanello. Is that right?
There you go. You got it.
Is that right? From Mosaic Management Group. They both bring 30 years dental business experience to their clients. They've got a deep well of information. They truly do not bring what I call template consulting. You know, that kind of consulting that one size fits all. But they bring customized consulting for what you need, wherever you need it, whenever you need it. They're amazing. And I'm so excited to hear what they're going to say about patient collections. Apparently, I have a problem speaking today, so I won't talk much. We know that's not going to happen. Anyways, welcome to the podcast, Linda and Jody.
Oh, thank you, Susan, and thank you for inviting us to be a part of this. Jody and I, as you mentioned, have worked together for over 30 years, and this is a topic that, of course, is critical to all dental practices. And any system that we are evaluating in a practice always starts with a little bit of a formula that we use. So the first thing we're looking at is making sure that the practice has clear expectations around what the purpose of the system is, why we want to do it, who does it benefit, what's the meaning behind it, so that the team members understand the doctor's or the practice's expectations around collections. So first step is making sure that clarity is there. The next step is then the how-tos, the step-by-step process. What paperwork do we use? What protocol do we have in place? What policy do we need? So it's then that we can start looking at tweaking the different systems that are in this payment arrangements category. Once we get through the steps and really evaluate that, we're looking at the communication skills piece. And this is probably the more critical aspect of making the system really work for an office. It's easy to write up, a protocol on step 1, step 2, step 3. It's then making sure that our day-to-day actions and words are communicating what we're intending to communicate. So when we look at the communication skills, we're looking at, how we say things to the patients. Do we ask questions? Do we make statements? What are the words we want to avoid saying, and what are the words that we want to encourage saying?
So you mean like give me your money?
Give me your money, or that's not our policy is a good one, that sort of thing that can kind of, leave the patient with an unsettling, response. There's also internal communication that happens. How do I, as the business assistant, a business administrator, communicate what I've discussed with the patient to the clinical area? How does the right hand know what the left hand has done or said? So there needs to be processes in place and communication tools, whether they're written or verbal.
Right.
And then most importantly is that Jody would like to say something.
Yeah, I just couldn't resist. I have to jump in too. I also did want to say, I think that sometimes Susan mentioned in her intro, why don't people collect payment over the counter? And I think there's a lot of fear around saying the wrong thing and not knowing what to say or
We're
how
just
to
asking for
say it.
money,
Yeah,
you know?
and money's sensitive to
Yeah.
everybody. And notwithstanding your own personal relationship with money, that gets communicated as well in terms of how or whether you ask for money. So there's I guess I just wanted to say that there are the steps and there are the verbal skills, and there has to be the courage from the individual to make it their own so that they can actually make sure that the practice does meet um, their goals around collections. So I'll let you finish, Linda.
Yeah, I actually, wait, I actually, we're waving each other. You guys can't see this on the podcast, but we do have our cameras on and we're waving. I asked the doctor one time why they weren't collecting more payments. And because I was dumbfounded at the amount that was outstanding for accounts receivable, and it was way over 90. And he said, well, my front desk person just doesn't like to ask for money. And I said, well, then doesn't have the right job in the practice if she doesn't like to
Yeah.
ask for money, because
Yeah.
that's part of making sure that the practice can pay the bills every month.
Right.
And so, what would you say to something like that?
I think it's exactly that. It's like you have to be willing, I think, to work with a team member, and help them gain the skills, gain the internal courage. They just need to practice it a few times. And as soon as they get through a few times, they get much more comfortable. They realize that every person coming through the door isn't going to bite their head off. They realize that it is a training process for their patients, right? Because if they've had years of not having to pay over the counter, then typically you have to introduce a system so that the patient can still feel comfortable walking away without having actually paid at that visit, but they know that the next time they're going to have to pay at that visit. And, a lot of offices will put in place something as simple as giving the patient their walkout statement and an envelope and asking them to get payment back to them within a week. And that can be a nice interim step to using a verbal skills such as your portion today is XYZ, $82. How would you like to handle that? Cash, check, or credit card. I mean, in today's world, some practices aren't even asking
Right.
cash anymore,
Which
so
I'm
they
okay
aren't.
with, by the way,
Yeah.
Yeah.
from a fraud standpoint.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
I told them now is your opportunity to say you're no longer taking cash because of all the germs that come with the
Yeah,
cash.
exactly.
Think about it. Before COVID, I don't know if you have Epic Burger where you are, but Epic Burger has never taken cash.
Oh,
It's
wow.
all credit card or debit card.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. So
Yeah.
it's real in our world today. I mean, I know I personally don't carry any cash anymore. I have no
me
cash.
neither.
So why would I? Although I
Right.
did have a team member recently talk about the fact that she took her cash home and put it in her laundry and washed it
It's another
and
way of
then air dried it.
money.
That's called money laundering to another
Exactly.
degree, right?
Yeah, exactly. Linda.
I was just going to say that I had a call with a doctor yesterday. About a month ago, Jody and I were in the practice talking just about this topic exactly. And their concern was they'd had a long-term front office business administrator, been with them probably, 20 plus years. And her mindset, and it's all about mindset, was that, patients were not willing and not able to pay at the time of service over the counter. They would see, and this is all in this person's head. She's retired. They've got 2 new people in, both without any dental experience. We did some coaching with them, and they're like, the doctor's like, it's amazing. We've been tracking it. So they're writing down what their over the counter collections percentage is every day. And he's like, I can't believe how much money they're collecting. I mean, it went up to 40% in just 1 month. So a lot of it has to do with the work around how you think about this. And if you think that patients won't pay you, you're right. They won't.
Right.
And if you think that they will, they will. So part of it's just getting your head in the right place around that. And then obviously Jody and I can help with how do you say it so it doesn't sound like I'm, wearing my brass knuckles and coming after everybody, as a, debt collector. So that would be, all part of the communication skills. I think the hard part is that transition I just mentioned, when for years the practices had not collected the money over the counter. They would wait for the insurance payment to come in and then send a statement, and the patients had been trained that way. So how do I retrain them? And that's where I think the team members need to know that they have to acknowledge that this is a different protocol. It's saying something along the lines of, Mrs. Smith, I know in the past you've always taken care of this after your insurance is paid. We've made some changes, and doctor has asked me to ask you to be prepared to take care of your portion at the time of service. Today's visit is X, $150. Would you like to take care of that with cash, check, or charge, or check or charge in this COVID times? And if there's an objection, that's when you offer a different solution, but restate the expectation for the future. So again, part of the communication skills is having some grace around not embarrassing the patient because they had never been trained to pay in the past, and they feel like all of a sudden the wool's being pulled over their eyes.
Right. And in COVID times when they may or may not have the money, maybe they work in the service industry and they don't have as many jobs.
Mm-hmm.
If the front desk people know that, and they can say the patient portion today is $50, is $100, but if you could just pay $50, we recognize that you're in the service industry, and so you can pay the next $50 next month, so it's easier for you and not coming out of all month. So you're setting the expectation with them that they will indeed pay the next month $50, and you're paying $50 now. I mean, there are a lot of people that probably, and quite frankly, myself included, that have never recommended that before, because I always tell the practices they're not the bank.
Right.
But when we have something like Katrina, and that's when I started changing a lot of things that I recommended, because we have to be merciful and we have to be kind-hearted. And in September 11th and all of the things that have happened that have kind of hit our nation, we have to kind of help each other. It's the same thing as I know that you guys have during the whole beginning of the shutdowns and stuff. Man, I know you as well as myself were giving away lots of free help, trying to help people to figure out their new routine. What is this new normal going to look like without charging? And so it just kind of felt like we were all in it together. I still feel that way, because what affects you affects me.
Right.
Sure.
And it always comes back to you tenfold, right? I mean, what you give out comes back. So the same thing is true in your practice and with your patient. When you are understanding of a circumstance and work together, it's going to make a big difference, and that patient's going to remember that kindness or that grace that you showed them. So it's very important, I think.
And I think I just want to add there that when you talk about grace, it means understanding and reading your patients. And some of that is asking good questions of your patients. Those verbal skills are so important. It's not assuming, it's allowing the patient to make the choice for themselves. As adults, we all like to choose. We don't like to be told. And
Right.
so if you ask good questions, you will typically create that connected relationship with your patients that allows you to be able to make good decisions with them that support practice goals as well as your patients.
And I think now, since we're on kind of the communication skills and how to ask questions, something we teach all the time is the importance of knowing when to ask a question and knowing when to make a statement. So one of the things we say all the time, don't ask a question you might not like the answer to. So there's
Would you
several,
like to pay?
several that
Yeah.
come to
No.
mind that we want you to avoid. How would you like to take care of that visit? Would you like to take care of the fee? Did you want to make a payment today? I'll just go ahead and bill your insurance like we have in the past, okay? Would you like me to send you a bill? I mean, these are the questions that get you into trouble because you're leading the patient to an answer that you're really not looking for. So just
You don't want, right?
reframing that and saying, first of all, asking how the visit went, asking about the patient and the experience before asking about the money is number one. Then number two, just very calmly state the fee for today's service and offer a choice. As Jody said earlier, adults especially like choices. And when I can focus the patient on whether I'm going to pay with check or with a credit card,
Or
it's
debit
easier.
card or a credit card.
Debit card, credit card. If I'm going to work out a payment option for them, it's, whether I'm going to pay it in 2 months or 3 months, so we just start to reframe it so the patient and the business administrator are feeling in conversation and in collaboration as opposed to, being dictatorial.
So
And
wait. Are you saying that the Jerry Maguire approach to show me the money might not be the best thing to do?
Maybe not. I mean, there are some people that would be comfortable with that, but the majority of people are probably not comfortable with
Yeah,
that approach.
probably not.
so the tricky thing with payment arrangements is there's a direct link in our world, in the consulting world, of how strong your payment arrangement process is and the case acceptance. So if I'm not looking to get patients to do more dentistry, to do more quadrant comprehensive dentistry, and I'm doing what we fondly call toothadonics, one tooth at a time, that most patients can pay for at the time of service and out of pocket and not have it be, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But once I get above a certain threshold, if I want the patient to be able to accept that in a timely fashion before it gets worse and gets a lot more expensive, then I need to have win-win arrangements available for the patient and the practice. And you have to have limits, and this goes back to kind of what the expectations, what the philosophy is, as to what I'm willing to carry for the patient and what needs to be outsourced or given to a financial partner, because dentists are not in the banking business, as we said.
Amen.
And we are not skilled. If we're having a hard time asking for a small copayment on a hygiene visit, we're going to have a really hard time asking for thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right. Yeah.
So there needs
Absolutely.
to be partners in there too that really support, again, the case acceptance piece. And then back to the fourth part of the system, we were just discussing the communication skills that are necessary, but the fourth part of the system is always looking at ways to evaluate whether that system, our payment options, payment arrangements, financial arrangements, whatever we're calling it, how well that is working for us. So that's where the monitoring and the statistics and the industry norms come into play. And that's how a practice is going to evaluate it. That's how a consultant is going to evaluate what's happening there. That's what, when you're looking into a practice, those are the types of numbers you're looking at to see, are they healthy? Are they in a good range norm? Or are they beyond? Is there something more? What questions do I need to ask to find out what's happening and why?
Okay, so give me some idea of what you're talking about, because if they're looking at, what percentage of collections they should be making, what does that look like? How do they evaluate that too? What reports
Okay.
do they run?
So different practice management systems have different reports that will show you what your collections are. Many of them will also calculate the percentage. And, the major systems, Dentrix, EagleSoft, they have reports and numbers that most practices should be running every day to just do an end of the day check to make sure everything got posted from the day. So there's a detailed day sheet, there's a daily summary page that shows you overall what production and collections were for the day. In terms of statistics, though, some of it is practice dependent. So if you have a large number of preferred provider organizations that you work for, where you're taking a reduced reimbursement rate for your services, you're going to want to be very clear about what you as the practice are giving away in terms of credit adjustments. So what kinds of discounts are you giving to patients? If you are already taking a cut from an insurance company, you really do need to control that in order to be fiscally healthy. And so in those situations, we are looking for a practice to be collecting at 98% and be giving away internally no more than 2% over and above whatever the insurance company is taking.
And so that's part of what I do on a fraud investigation, just FYI, is that I look at the adjustments and I divide them between the insurance adjustments and what I call the subjective adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
The pot of professional courtesy.
Courtesy, right?
And
The
by the way,
family.
I preach this all the time. I don't like the word discounts.
Yeah.
Discounts for a dental practice reminds me of something from Kmart, and they are a professional practice. So I really try to get them to use another word like benefit or savings or something like that.
We like courtesy.
Yeah, and courtesy, because those words actually print out on the patient statement.
Right.
And so you want it to be something that's really nice, because you can even say, I had one client that had a, because you've been a long time patient, thank you adjustment.
Yeah.
You can
They had
name
enough
anything.
characters.
So one of the things that we always say is, we're all for, when the practice is profitable and can afford to do some of these kinds of adjustments and offer these courtesies to patients,
Right.
just make sure the doctor is aware and it's, I'll call it justified. It's a lot of times it's a marketing sort of thing. So if I'm a VIP patient who's referring a lot of patients to me, that's somebody I'm good with giving some kind of a adjustment to on a service. But if I'm just giving it because it's my next door neighbor who came to me, and out of in a weak moment I started this process, and now it's been years and they're still getting it, and yet there's really not any sort of a reciprocal relationship, I have to start to question if that's getting over that 2% mark. And that's where offices, sometimes 98% is the industry norm for collections, 2% for these sort of courtesies and write-offs. However, in some practices, 96% is what the doctor deems is healthy for them, because they've tracked this, they analyze the write-offs, and they are fine with the 4% that they're writing off. It's intentional.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, most of the practices that I see from a fraud standpoint, by the way, they're on my desk, and I'm cultivating the evidence for whatever reason. And I'm seeing anywhere from 5 to 10% subjective,
Wow. Yeah,
adjustment.
that's a red flag.
And
Yes,
so, I
for
mean,
sure.
that's kind of a huge red flag for me. And I tell them I'm okay if it's, 1 to 4 on the subjective, but even then, I had a dentist, I had a dentist that swore there was an embezzlement going on in his practice, and he knew something was happening. You just love those. I mean, adamant. And
Yep.
so I'm like digging in and looking at, oh my gosh, he was, and it's such, like 99.9% of the people that we have the privilege and the honor to serve in the dental community, they have huge, kind hearts. I mean, just nicest people you would ever talk to. And I love it because they're so much fun to talk to. But this guy was, I mean, he would have the homeless people come in to his practice and, they need dental care, but he was writing off a lot. And I said, so the bottom line is, honey, this, he was a Southern dentist, so I could say, bless your heart. I said, the bottom line is, honey, you either need to make more from people who are paying for the services or not adjust so much off because it was an imbalance. And
Yeah.
so that gets to be a problem too. And so you kind of look at all of it, but I'm really so glad to hear you guys say that 2% is kind of your mark.
2% and with the expectation that it's being evaluated every month. So I know what's in that 2% and it's justified. And if there is a month that it's a little bit higher, as long as I can explain it, I'm fine. And that's how you're going to stay on top of that sort of thing.
Awesome.
And I will also add that I think it's important to adjust it off, not zero the fee
Yes.
out. That's a whole nother mess. Then you don't know what you are truly giving away if you're zeroing the fee out and not having an appropriate adjustment category to adjust it off. Be aware of what you're doing. It's fine. You can make your own choice for what's right for you for your practice, but without accurate data, you can't make any decisions. So don't zero the fees out, write it off.
Right. And the thing I'll say is that happens the most when I ask that question is, well, our insurance table wasn't correct. Well, guess what? Correct it.
Mm-hmm.
Quit changing the fees.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you guys have any recommendations for keeping the insurance fee schedule accurate?
I think that one of the things that people don't take the time for, and maybe this is when the doctor is on vacation, but on an annual basis, they really do need to clean up their carrier lists and employer lists and to detach patients from their insurance carrier when they are inactivating them. There's a cleanup to the database within the system that needs to take place. And understanding what status a person has in your practice. They can be a patient, a non patient, an inactive patient, an archived patient. I mean, there's a lot of different statuses, and none of your patient count information is correct. Your insurance isn't correct. I mean, what if you spell Illinois wrong? So I'm working at your front desk and I spell Illinois Illinos. It's supposed to be Nois, but I'm doing Delta Dental of Illinois and I've spelled Illinois two different ways. I've got two of the exact same insurance carriers
Right.
attached to the insurance carrier list. And nobody knows this unless somebody takes the time to sort through what's valid information on that list. And that takes time when you're not checking patients in and checking out patients to do it right.
Right.
And the same thing then when you're posting the payments and updating what's being reimbursed in that, in that insurance section so that the lists are accurate.
Well, and so right now there's a lot of patients that probably have lost their benefits. because of COVID and being let off. Do you guys have any recommendations for that with the patients coming back in?
Yeah, the recommendation is they need to verify eligibility. And that's time, and it's somebody's task. And either that's time that a practice has, and they have personnel that are able to do that for the next day or 2 days out's patients, or it's one of those things that gets outsourced to one of the companies that will do that for
Remote.
you.
Yeah.
They'll remote into your system
Yeah.
and do eligibility for you.
Yeah, that's true. There are some of those systems out there that do that. How would you Google a provider for that?
Um, I think dental plus insurance benefits.
Mhm.
And I can think of 4
Virtual,
companies.
you might add virtual to that.
Virtual.
Yeah.
I
Not to
mean,
give away any specific names of companies. That was the whole point of me asking.
yeah, I
Right.
know. How do you
Yeah.
Google it, right?
Yeah. How to
Because
Google it.
there are you'd be surprised.
There are quite a few.
There's more than a few now, because
Right.
the hospital systems have gone into doing that remotely, and so
Mhm.
dental is following along, especially if a practice has a large number of insurance carriers that they deal with. It can be um, a good can be a very good spend of money rather than hiring a person to do that on your team.
Yeah. Linda, you look like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'm thinking about all the different reports that we need to be running to evaluate how well the system is doing. And so certainly looking at the insurance piece of it is one of them. So one of the insurance related reports, not just the listings and are they cleaned up and accurate, but then there's the insurance aging report. How long is my money out to the insurance? Are the e-claims going through properly? Am I getting that reimbursement in a timely fashion? So that's another report that you need to be looking at and making sure they're not falling through the cracks, or, there can be a lot of requests for more x-rays, more denials, more letters, more, that can really wreak havoc on your outstanding receivables. So there's the insurance aging report as well as the accounts receivable aging report.
Do you have a system for tracking the EFT payments that are directly deposited to the bank, and they may or may not receive the EOB in a timely fashion, and blah, blah, blah? I've heard all sorts of excuses so that the EFT was deposited a month before it's ever put into the practice software. Do you have a system for that?
Yeah, no, Susan, that's a hard thing, because typically it's the bank statement where that information shows up. And so the only person that in
Sure.
most offices is the doctor that's aware of
Right.
that. And it's, how do you match up they've got to be able to say, all right, this electronic funds transfer happened for the practice. Here's the dollar amount. And then the admin team has to chase it down.
Well, I do think that I had one office that I was just wondering if you guys had done this, but I had one office that knows the companies that are depositing EFTs into the bank. And so at the end of the week, they routinely checked that website, that insurance company's website, to see if any payments had been put into the bank. And so then they would print that off and give it to the doctor, because like you said, Jody, the doctor is doing the QuickBooks or keeping up with the bank information. And so the front desk person puts it into the practice software and then gives the doctor that printout so that they know that it should be in the bank. I'm just trying to do this back-to-back accountability. Then I got to tell you, I loved EFTs when they first came out. Yeah.
But now
I mean, they're chaotic. I'd
yeah,
rather get paper.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. It's hard.
With a
It's hard on everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, paper with a system. But anyway, knowing that those two can be stolen. Uh, so tell me a little bit about patient statements. What you guys think about that? So we've had them at the front desk. We've asked for their patient portion. The insurance company has not paid as much as it was expected for whatever reason, and the patient is still liable for a payment. What do you, from when the insurance check comes in, walk me through that, receiving the patient and communicating with the patient.
So, first of all, I guess I would back up even further. So, when the treatment's diagnosed, the system should be having a negotiated and written firm financial arrangement for how the patient is going to pay for treatment. And the verbal skills that you use to negotiate through that and to communicate to the patient that the benefits are an estimation that they are going to receive and that they are not a solid number. I mean, and hopefully your financial coordinators, the people that are negotiating payment arrangements with your practices, are doing their very best to take the EOBs and keep the insurance system updated to understand when the least expensive alternative treatment clauses apply and to be able to manage that process so it's not a frequent thing that patients get blindsided by an additional payment
Right.
that is required. So you're doing everything you can to prevent that from happening.
On the front end.
And
Yeah.
and that being said, it is so complex these days, and there are so many exclusions and so many clauses and so many things that end up in these contracts that sometimes you just don't really know. And hopefully, if you've negotiated the financial arrangement, you've done it in such a way that the patient is paying prior to the final treatment being placed in their mouth so that you're not trying to chase the money after they've already completed treatment in your practice. So that's something that you're doing through the process as well. Let's say that all
Yes,
of it
because
is, yeah, go ahead.
there's a reason plastic surgeons get money up front for breast implants, by the way. So just
Exactly.
FYI.
And what Jody was just saying is really the fine print that needs to be on the paperwork. You know, whether it's at the bottom of a treatment plan, whether it's a financial arrangement form where they're picking the option that they're doing, but there needs to be this, what we call the fine print, that talks about that as a courtesy to you, we're happy to submit for your benefits. We'll maximize whatever we can. We're experts at it. However, this fee is ultimately your responsibility. And, you know, this is how we're going to handle it. If we haven't heard from an insurance company, we may need to get you involved in helping to contact the insurance company. You set this all up before it's a problem.
Right.
I might, if I'm the financial administrator, I might highlight a couple of these portions just to make sure that I've pointed it out and I've reinforced it. And I'm working as an advocate for you, the patient, with your insurance company, but I can make no guarantees. And I think when you have that kind of communication, there's going to be less of a problem on the back end. With that said, the other thing is, you know, we like to see daily billing, daily statements.
Awesome.
Okay. So practices kind of choose from between 21 days to 30 days out. So every day, depending on how large your practice is, you're going to send out 8 to 10, however many patients still have an outstanding balance from 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, but you're only sending it for one day at a time. So if today is the 6th of November, I'm sending statements to patients that were October 6th seen and still have an outstanding. We haven't gotten the full balance back from the insurance company, or we've gotten it back, you know, and it's been sent. So
So
that way, you're only processing
do you send it to them then once a week? So you're sending, or you send every day?
daily.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
as the insurance payment is put in, you submit you submit a claim for that, and then whoever still has an outstanding balance from, let's say, 30 days ago gets a statement. So there's minimal statements. I'm not spending a full day, going through 500 statements. I'm
Right.
doing 10, or I'm batching in small period, and then I have a better handle on what's
Who's
there.
really
Right, where you're at. And most of the software system, it's part of the setup. It's easy to set it up to do that, and that seems to be the most efficient way to do it. And then I just have to, as the business administrator, know that I need, let's say, 30 minutes every day to generate these and get them out.
And if they don't know how to set that up in their system, A, Google,
Yeah.
B,
YouTube.
they pay for this service to call and ask questions.
Oh, right.
And so you don't get if you don't ask. And so always ask questions to help them walk it through on how to do it.
And there's so
So
much
that
great
it's a
training
smoother.
out there.
Yeah.
I
my
video
gosh.
training, it's amazing. People just don't think of it until you send them. And I know Jody and I have sat in offices and said, here, just go, go here,
Google
do that.
this?
And they're like, oh my God, this is like, I can't believe this information is here. So they just never thought to look it up that way. It was always
Right.
call somebody or hire a trainer to come in for a day. And you can't do that a day in and day out. So there's a lot of great resources that way to do that. But that's something that's been
So
really.
you recommend that when you get the insurance in, that they put that payment in and they immediately send a patient statement.
Correct.
That's what I recommend too.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and I look at whoever is 30 days out and still has a balance, hasn't paid off, and I generate that statement today also.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so you're generating whatever insurance payments you posted today, and there's still a balance, and you're generating 30 days out.
Because maybe you'd never received a payment for some reason from the insurance company. They should have had some contact with you by a 30-day point. And if you don't have any payment, you need to be aware of that.
Yeah, and that also makes your 30, 60, 90 accounts receivable report so much more accurate, doesn't it?
Yes.
It does. And I want to talk a little bit about how we recommend evaluating that over 90 days accounts receivable.
But before we go there, can I just make one other statement about billing?
No.
The traditional, no, not at all. All right. The traditional thing we all see in dental practices is that people bill once a month. Well, if today is the 6th and I was in on the 2nd and the day you bill is the 15th, I have a different time frame than the person who came in on the 14th, right? And we're all getting our statements at the same time. So you don't get the same 30 days. So it's not fair, really, doing monthly billing for your patients either. Some people are getting a longer period of time to wait to pay, and others are not. So
not to mention the telephone ringing off the hook with questions about their statement all at the same time because of the volume that's gone out and received within a day or two. So it just helps the workflow tremendously.
Well, and I'll be honest, I used to be one of those that recommended it to be done once a month, but I recommended it to be done once a month because I just wanted them to do it.
Well, there is that.
In an embezzlement investigation, more often I saw they weren't even sending statements.
Yeah.
Well,
or they were holding on to them.
Part of the reason was because it's such a big task and we're busy and there's no time. So it gets pushed away. And it's like, no, we have to get you shifted to this smaller task on a daily basis.
No, in the embezzlement investigations, the reason they put it off is because the statements weren't accurate.
Right. Yeah, that too. Mm-hmm.
That would be why, but hey.
Yeah. So evaluating the accounts receivable report. again, a good way of doing it. There's typically 4 different categories on your over 90s when you're looking at that. I'm looking to see first who is current in my over 90 category. By current, I mean we have received a payment within the last 30 days. So I don't need to take any action on that particular patient because they're paying the agreed upon amount that we negotiated. And they said they would send $100 a month for the next 3 months, and they're paying the $100 a month, or we're automatically running the credit card, $100 a month. So that's fine. The second category that you want to highlight is what we call the slow payers. They're the people that promise to pay $100 a month. They're not delinquent because they sent something in, but they sent $50. They sent a lesser amount than they agreed to. And the trick there is, how do we follow up with them? There needs to be a phone call made that says, thank you for your partial payment. We are calling to find out when we can expect the other portion. If you just leave it alone, it becomes the new financial arrangement. And now you get into that's where you have $25 a month for 50 years on the books. So you've got to be able to turn that around. The third category is the outstanding insurance. And that's what we were just discussing before. And really that should be less than 5% of your total accounts receivable there. I mean, that shouldn't be a big amount if you're using electronic claims and you're evaluating this regularly. So you're looking for the ones that have slipped through the cracks or need extra documentation. And then the fourth category is who's delinquent. And our definition of delinquent is there has been no payment in 30 days, not 90 days.
Right.
So if they're not current, if there hasn't been a payment, then we need to be doing some sort of follow-up, because once it gets to a 90-day point with no payment, it's virtually impossible. You're basically writing it off to the debt collector.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen that to be 60 days these days.
Yep.
If they've not gotten any payment within 60. Yep. And so the communication has to be really consistent between time of service and that 60-day mark. I think the 60 is the new 90 for what we used to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because people get in trouble fast. And that's and once they get on that slippery slope, it's virtually impossible without getting an outside service involved to do that collection. It's not worth the time and energy for the dental practice to be involved.
And I think a lot of this goes back to practice philosophy and type of dentistry that's being done. So, my accounts receivable over 90, again, if I'm a more of a bread and butter practice, doing general dentistry, family dentistry, not a lot of big implant cases, not a lot of huge quadrant dentistry cases, I'm doing fillings here and there, and the patient portion is not that much, then I'm going to expect that I don't need to, loan the money to the patient for 90 days to be able to take care of that. But when I'm starting to get into more complex dentistry and more expensive treatment plans, then I need to offer some options for patients to be able to say yes. So there's a limit to what I can offer as the dentist. You're not a bank. So if I can do within 3 payments, within 3 months, within 90 days, and I'm in control by doing an automated payment, an automatic credit card or automatic debit card payment. So I'm not waiting for the patient to mail or drop off a check. I've got a due date. I negotiate that. I automatically charge it. Then I'm fine doing it internally, in-house. But the real benefit, if I can't afford whatever that 3 payments in 90 days is of my patient portion, that's where the outside financing partner comes in. And again, this is one of those mindset things. It's like asking for money over the counter that we started off with. Either we have the mindset that that's, patients don't want another credit card, or they'll never accept it, or I would never pay, that. Or we have the mindset of, I'm going to have more patients accepting more comprehensive dentistry, being able to get healthy faster if I do this service. And a lot of it is the verbal skill around that is the doctor is willing to pay the interest or share in the interest with you. So it's a share, that there's an investment that the doctor is doing to help you get the care that you need.
Right. And I'll tell you, from a patient standpoint, I got care credit for some dental work that I was going to do, and then used my care credit for my knee surgery. I mean, you just didn't, I had to have the knee surgery. I mean, it was torn. So it was like, I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
And it was expensive, and that's what a lot of dental work is. But having one that went over a range of healthcare options was really nice. And that made it, I could do it, and I could pay this over a period of time.
Right.
And so I think from a patient standpoint, too many times we don't think about it because we're patients too. And so I always try to go, what would I want? And what would I say? And that kind of brings up to one of the last things I was going to ask you guys about. What about patient overpayments? We've received their payments, but now it's more than what's expected. What do you guys recommend for handling that?
I think your first step is to really make sure that the patient has actually overpaid. It depends on how much insurance involvement you have in the practice. That's a really very complex thing. So I think step one is make sure the patient did actually overpay. But if they did overpay, you need to have a patient refund process. And that needs to be something that's taken care of on at least a monthly basis. So it's a system in a practice, and there's a person responsible for proving out and who is owed a refund, and then actually issuing those refund checks. But you need the first part of this is be careful, because there's a lot that goes into, if they have dual insurance and what the insurance company paid and who's primary and whether or not it's supposed to be up to and including the fee you've agreed to. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's kind of scary sometimes when you look at the books in some practices and they have all these credit balances, and you just know that not all of them are real. And
Sometimes they're posting errors. They were just applied
yeah,
inappropriately by a previous employee from several years ago. It's still impacting that credit balance. So there's some investigation that needs to happen. And I think the same thing from a verbal skill standpoint. You don't want your patients calling and ask, they get something that says they've overpaid from the insurance company or whatever, and they're calling you thinking you're keeping their money. So you want to be on top of it. If there's any overpayment at all, doctor writes the refund checks on the 10th and the 20th of the month. So it's not I'm writing a check every day and I'm putting in this little piece of paper on there's a protocol. When I sit down to do my accounts payable, so whether it's the bookkeeper or whether it's the doctor, have some set dates so your team has a set verbal skill of what the patient can expect and when they should see that.
So after the investigation, do you wait? And this is like a totally loaded question, because I know what I see on my end is that the doctors are waiting huge amounts of time, a year and 2 years before they ever do patient refunds. And so these credits are on the books forever. And
and
I
it's
don't
a
agree with that. That's keeping, and I'll tell you why I don't agree with it. It gets back to us being patients sometimes. I went to the orthopedic doctor again for my knee again, 4 years and 10 months after my knee surgery, and found out I had a almost $900 credit on my account that I had paid. Yeah, I'm like, really? And so they credited my visit that day. Wasn't that nice of them? And then sent me a check for the remainder. And I was like, why? 4 years and how many months? And I had a credit? Really?
Well,
And
and just
so I think great communication if we feel like we can trust our people who we're giving money to, that if we overpay that they're going to give it back. And I don't mind paying more than my portion if I know that that's going to happen.
Right.
And I will also say, we're all of the age, and Linda and I have clients that are also of the age of when they are looking at transition in their practice. This is a huge deal in transitions. You got a bunch of credit balances out there. That all needs to be cleared up before somebody is purchasing the practice.
Yeah. Well, and it's legal. I mean, you have to do it in most states.
Oh, in most states, there's a
majority of the states, it's up 5 years.
Right.
And so that's what was really funny with my situation, that it was 4 years and 10 months, because it was right up to that 5-year mark that they would have had to send it to the state. And I've actually gotten patient payments refunded back to me, like right up to that mark. And you just go, really? Seriously? I know what you're doing, because this is my business. And so, but I think there ought to be that process too. And one of the things that I recommend in the book, Money In, Money Out, and again, if you guys haven't gotten it, Jody and Linda have read it.
Oh, yeah.
We have, and we recommend it all the time.
Yeah, it's really a fabulous resource.
So the Money In, Money Out book gives a process for handling those patient refunds, but to actually call the patients and not just quite lazily put them in the mail and hope that they get to the right address, but to actually call the patient and let them know and have them come into the practice to pick up their check. And you spin it to be a really good thing, like on Thursdays or Wednesdays, you would call and have them come on Thursday, because then they've got money for the weekend. So cool. I got $30 for the weekend. That's 2 margaritas.
Hey, you're doing top shelf.
I am doing top shelf.
Exactly.
But it's all a process in handling that. And I think it's a great opportunity for patient relations.
Yes.
We've spent pretty much a majority of our time talking about communication. So
it's, and money is a sensitive topic, and it's emotional, and it's how you build trust. And if you mishandle that, it's hard to get that trust back.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, girls, I can't believe it. It's at 56 minutes. Good grief. We kind of joked before we started that we'd probably end up talking 2 hours, and trust me, we could. What do you think? Is there anything that you feel like we've left out? Is there something else that we need to share?
I think the importance of having written, signed agreements. There needs to be, the patient needs to, especially when we're getting into payment plans where you're getting into more than one payment, there needs to be, if nothing else, we're initialing so that we know there's no misunderstandings about what we've discussed. You want to have that. It's a way to test for case acceptance. If the patient isn't willing to sign for that, they're probably not closed on the recommended treatment, and
that's a good
idea. Have more discussion. So I think make sure you have good paperwork that's easy to use and sign and has some of that fine print that we talked about earlier. And then the only other thing I would say is the mantra Jody and I use all the time that has to do with just the whole payment process is inform before you perform. The problems, the misunderstandings, the miscommunications happen when we perform the dentistry, drill, fill, and bill, that concept, where you need to, make sure they're aware of what that looks like and what that patient portion is, and that you're working with them to help them take care of that portion. You'll find patients will accept a lot more of the necessary dentistry when we've had those kind of caring conversations.
That's awesome. Jody?
I was going to say inform before you perform, but Linda already said that. And I do think that is critical when talking about a sensitive subject such as money. You definitely need to take the time to have appropriate conversations. You need to have the courage and the right mindset going into those conversations, and make sure that you are connecting with your patient and truly negotiating an agreement that allows them to get the dentistry that they need done, taken care of in a manner that fits within their budget.
Awesome. This was fun. Oh my
It was
gosh.
fun.
I got to tell you, thank you guys so much. If anything, that y'all missed for the listeners, getting to see their faces, since I've been at the house almost the whole time since March. It's kind of fun to see everybody else's face every now and then. Thank you so much for providing such valuable information. I mean, this is information that they can take and run with. How can you help them further? And then how can they reach you?
I think our website is the first place to go, mosaicmanagementgroup.com. You can reach Jody or I through our email, jody@mosaicmanagementgroup.com, or Linda, Linda, @mosaicmanagementgroup.com. And that's probably the best way to see the kinds of work we do, and contact us if you have any questions or need some assistance.
Telephone number 248-792-2700 is a phone number also to call.
Directly get to our direct office.
Yeah, we actually do like to have those verbal conversations sometimes
Yes.
instead of text.
Yes.
I think
Verbal
it's funny,
conversations are good.
on my website in big, huge letters is the phone number. And underneath is a little bar that says request a consultation.
Mhm.
And nobody calls and everybody requests a consultation. So but I want to hear voices. Anyway, so maybe they're afraid I'm going to talk too much, right, Jody?
Could be.
That might be it. I thank you guys again. If this podcast has not helped you put more money in the bank, then it's possible you weren't listening. So I'm just going to say it's time for you to implement sound financial organizational systems and procedures in your practice. Now is the time. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past, but it does matter what you're doing now and in the future. And on a final note, when the foundation of our country is in turmoil, please do your part in being a strong, calm leader for all of those who look up to you. Mind your words. Go back to how you were raised. I don't know about you, but my mom told me all the time, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. I have been heartbroken this whole last week and actually for several months from all the careless, hate-filled speech thrown among those who were friends. And oh my gosh, the accusations. Wow, just wow. Even having never been a parent, I've wanted to put our country in a timeout, take everyone's electronic devices away, shut down the internet, turn off everybody's TV. Well, so except maybe for the Hallmark Channel or HGTV. I love those two channels. But oh my gosh, take a time out. As a fraud examiner, I deal with facts only, evidence in hand. That's what I have to do. I recommend that, by the way, even outside fraud examination. I've been that way my whole life. My ancestors have been in America since the 1600s. Many shed blood and their lives during countless wars, including the Civil War. Listening to the neighbor against neighbor rhetoric, it feels like we're being set up for another civil war, you guys. We're certainly already in an uncivil war. So please, your family, your friends, your practice family need you to take a breath. Stand down any angst you feel and breathe in calm. Be kind to those who differ from you. Stop complaining. Be that person everyone wants to be around because of how safe, how secure, and how cared about they feel when they are with you. If the world ended tomorrow, I really don't care if I'm on the winning side. What truly matters, what I truly care about, is if I led my life with integrity. Until the next time, you guys be safe.
That's a wrap for this podcast of Money In, Money Out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to write down the most valuable tip you learned today so you don't forget it. And remember, you can find out more about all the valuable books and services Susan has to offer at www.susangunnsolutions.com.